What if the bottle sitting in your kitchen cabinet right now, the one you use for salad dressing, has been quietly misunderstood your entire life? Not misunderstood in a small way, in a big way. Because most of us think of olive oil as something you cook with, something you drizzle, something you barely think about. But there's a version of the story that almost nobody talks about. What happens when you take a small spoonful of it in the evening, right before you go to sleep? Stay with me for the next few minutes, because by the end of this video, you're going to look at that bottle completely differently. And I promise you, the last point on this list is the one that surprised me the most. Let's get into it. Here's something most people don't think about. Your body doesn't stop working when you fall asleep. It actually gets busier. While you're unconscious, your brain is clearing out waste. Your muscles are rebuilding. Your gut is doing a deep clean. Your blood vessels are relaxing and repairing themselves. This is prime time for your body, the hours when real repair happens. But here's the catch. As we get older, this repair process doesn't run as smoothly as it used to. Inflammation creeps up. Digestion slows down. Blood sugar gets less stable overnight. And little by little, these disruptions show up as things we just accept as getting older: stiffness, poor sleep, brain fog, low energy. The interesting part is this. Some very ordinary foods can support these overnight repair systems. And olive oil, specifically extra virgin olive oil, is one of the most studied of them. I want to be upfront with you. I'm not a doctor, and nothing in this video is medical advice. What I'm sharing is drawn from real, published nutrition science, not miracle claims, not magic cures. Just an honest look at what the research actually says and why timing might matter more than we think. So tonight, we're going to walk through what's known about olive oil's role in sleep, heart health, joints, gut health, muscle, blood sugar, and brain health. And I'll be clear about what's well-established versus what's still early or preliminary. Before we start, drop a comment and tell me, what's the one health concern that quietly worries you the most as you've gotten older? I read every comment, and it genuinely shapes what I cover next. Let's begin. Point 7, sleep quality. Let's start with sleep because it ties into everything else on this list. Extra virgin olive oil contains a compound called oleocanthal. It's the reason really good olive oil gives you that peppery, slightly sharp feeling at the back of your throat. That's not a flaw. That's actually a sign of quality. What's interesting about oleocanthal is that researchers have found behaves somewhat like ibuprofen at a molecular level. It interacts with some of the same inflammatory pathways, though obviously in much smaller amounts and through food rather than medication. Now, why does that matter for sleep? Because low-grade inflammation is increasingly understood to interfere with deep, restorative sleep, especially as we age. It's not the whole story of insomnia, but it's a real piece of the puzzle. Some small studies on olive oil polyphenol have shown improvements in sleep quality markers when consumed in the evening. The effect sizes vary study to study, and this is still a developing area of research, so I won't throw out an exaggerated number here, but the direction is consistent. Evening polyphenol intake appears to support, not disrupt, sleep. If you want to try this yourself, a tablespoon of good quality, cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil about 30 minutes before bed. You can take it straight or stir it into warm water with a small pinch of sea salt. For an easy pairing, a small handful of tart cherries is a nice add. They naturally contain a small amount of melatonin, so you're supporting two different pathways at once. Point 6, heart and arteries overnight. Now let's talk about your heart, because something genuinely important happens to your cardiovascular system while you sleep. Blood pressure naturally dips at night in most people, but in the early morning hours, it tends to rise again. This is one reason cardiovascular events cluster around the early morning rather than during activity. Olive oil's primary fat is oleic acid, a monounsaturated fat that makes up the majority of its fat content. Monounsaturated fats have a long track record in cardiovascular research, most famously through Mediterranean diet studies, which have consistently linked olive oil consumption with better markers of heart health, including improvements in LDL cholesterol oxidation, the process that makes cholesterol more likely to build up in artery walls. Your liver does a large share of its metabolic housekeeping work overnight, so there's a reasonable evidence-supported logic to consuming healthy fats and polyphenol in the evening. You're supplying raw materials right before your body puts them to use. If you're on heart medication of any kind, this is genuinely worth a quick conversation with your doctor, not because olive oil is risky, but because good habits should be layered onto your existing care, not replace it. For pairing, a small square of dark chocolate, 85% cacao or higher, combines nicely since both dark chocolate and olive oil contain compounds studied for supporting blood vessel function. Point 5. Joints. Point 5 is for anyone who wakes up stiff. The tissue that cushions your joints, synovial tissue, naturally thins with age, and inflammation plays a role in that process. This is part of the broader story behind osteoarthritis, which affects a very large share of people over 60. Oleocanthal, the same compound from earlier, has been studied for its ability to interfere with some of the inflammatory signals involved in cartilage breakdown. Some clinical research on olive oil and joint symptoms has shown meaningful improvements in pain and mobility scores over several weeks of consistent use, though again, results vary between studies and individuals, and this isn't a replacement for proper medical treatment of arthritis. Since tissue repair is more active during deep sleep, taking olive oil in the evening, rather than with breakfast, lines up with when your body is actually doing this repair work. Try 1 tablespoon 30 to 45 minutes before bed. Pairing it with a source of vitamin C, like warm lemon water, is a nice touch, since vitamin C plays a direct role in collagen production, and collagen is a structural backbone of your joint tissue. Point 4. Gut health. Number 4 is about your gut, and this one deserves way more attention than it gets, especially for older adults. As we age, gut bacterial diversity tend to decline, and that decline is linked to more systemic inflammation and weaker immune function. Your gut isn't just about digestion. It's deeply tied to your immune system and your overall inflammatory load. Here's where olive oil gets genuinely interesting. Its polyphenols aren't fully absorbed in the small intestine. A portion of them travel down to the large intestine, where they act almost like food for beneficial bacteria, species like lactobacillus and bifidobacterium, while research suggests they may also discourage some less helpful bacterial strains. Interestingly, your gut does a lot of its housekeeping contractions overnight between meals in a process called a migrating motor complex. Having olive oil in your system during this window may support that natural cleansing cycle. 1 tablespoon before bed, paired with a warm cup of chamomile tea, is a simple combination. Chamomile has its own reputation for supporting gut lining health, alongside the prebiotic effect of the oil. Quick pause here. If this is landing for you, hit like and subscribe. It genuinely helps this channel keep making evidence-based content instead of hype. Now, let's talk about muscle, because after 60, this becomes one of the most important factors in how independently you live. Point 3. Muscle preservation. This one matters more than most people realize. After age 60, most people lose a small percentage of muscle mass every year if nothing is done about it. Left unaddressed, that adds up over the decades, and it affects everything from balance to metabolism to how easily you can carry your own groceries. Part of the reason muscle loss accelerates with age is something called anabolic resistance. Your muscles become less responsive to protein you eat compared to when you were younger. It takes more effort to get the same muscle-building signal across. This is where olive oil's polyphenol come in. Some research has explored their potential role in supporting muscle protein synthesis pathways and reducing markers linked to muscle breakdown. It's a newer area of study compared to olive oil and heart health. So, I'll be honest, the evidence here is promising but still developing. What we do know for certain is this: protein timing matters, and a slow-releasing protein source in the evening, like Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, or a boiled egg, pairs well with resistance training to help preserve muscle as you age. Adding olive oil to that evening routine is a reasonable, low-risk addition on top of the fundamentals: strength training and adequate protein, which remain the real drivers of muscle preservation. Point 2. Blood sugar. Point 2 is about something that quietly affects a huge number of people over 60: overnight blood sugar regulation. In people with insulin resistance, which becomes more common with age, whether or not it's formally diagnosed, blood sugar can rise in the early morning hours due to a natural process where the liver releases stored glucose in anticipation of waking up. In a well-regulated system, insulin handles this smoothly. In an insulin-resistant system, it can cause repeated spikes night after night. This is one of the better studied areas of olive oil research. Adding olive oil to a meal has consistently been shown in nutrition studies to slow gastric emptying, meaning food moves more gradually into your intestine, which helps blunt sharp blood sugar spikes after eating. Olive oil has also been studied for its role in supporting insulin sensitivity, largely through the action of oleic acid. If blood sugar stability is a concern for you, a tablespoon of olive oil 20 to 30 minutes before your last small meal or snack of the evening is a reasonable, well-supported habit. Some people also pair it with a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar and water, which has its own separate body of research on post-meal blood sugar response. As always, if you're managing diabetes or prediabetes, this works best alongside your doctor's guidance, not instead of it. Point 1, brain health. And now, the one I promised you at the start, the one that made me want to make this video in the first place. There's a system in your brain called the glymphatic system, and if you haven't heard of it, you're not alone because of a relatively recent discovery in neuroscience. While you sleep, your brain actually clears out metabolic waste through the system, including a protein called beta amyloid, which is closely associated with cognitive decline when it builds up over time. This clearance process is far more active during sleep than during waking hours. Here's what makes this genuinely exciting. Some research, including work coming out of neuroscience labs studying oleocanthal specifically, has explored whether this compound may support the brain's natural waste clearing process. This is still an emerging area of research, and I want to be honest with you. It is not a proven treatment or prevention for Alzheimer's disease or any form of dementia, but it's a fascinating thread of ongoing science and one worth watching. What we do know is this. Sleep quality itself is one of the strongest lifestyle factors linked to long-term brain health. And since the glymphatic system is most active during sleep, anything that genuinely supports better sleep, like the anti-inflammatory effects we talked about earlier, indirectly supports this brain-clearing process too. For what it's worth, some researchers have also found that sleeping on your side, rather than your back, may support glymphatic function more efficiently than other sleep positions. A small, low-effort adjustment worth trying. Pairing your evening olive oil with a small serving of blueberries is a nice addition. Blueberries are well studied for their antioxidant content and their potential role in reducing inflammation more broadly. Here's what I want you to walk away with. None of what we talked about today is a miracle cure. It's not going to reverse aging or replace medical care, but small, well-supported habits, done consistently over months and years, genuinely add up. That's not hype. That's just how the body works. 1 tablespoon of good quality extra virgin olive oil in the evening, alongside real sleep, real movement, and real medical care when you need it. That's a simple, low-cost habit backed by a real body of nutrition science. You don't need to overhaul your entire life tonight. You just need to start with one small, honest step. If this video helped you see something familiar in a new light, share it with someone who'd appreciate it. And if you want more videos like this, grounded in real research, without the exaggeration, subscribe, because there's more coming. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one.